Hello, 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 everybody. I hope you are well. Happy Thursday. So delighted to be here. This is Coach Joanne coming with another training as Facebook and Instagram lets you know that I'm here. Let me just tidy up a little. Yes, yes. Just let me know where you're streaming from as you come in. I'm very, very happy to be here as I always am. And I have yet another training for you, something new, something fresh, something to wrap up the month of September, how to break free from frustrating patterns in your life. So, some of you may never have met me before. You're wondering, who is this lady and why is she an authority to talk about these things? So, my name is John Moturi. I am a life purpose and business coach for women. I have been doing this full time for the last now 5 years. It's incredible how time flies. Having been in a corporate career for a very long time, I was working for the UN and in banking. I completely pivoted into the world of coaching. But what I did not realize is that a lot of the stuff that I had learned in my corporate job was very, very applicable in what I do right now. And as I work with women from all over the world, different parts of the world. I've realized we may be in different shapes, sizes, careers, but some things are still so the same. And these frustrating patterns I'm going to talk about, whether you're in America, whether you're in Jamaica, whether you're in Kenya, whether you're in the UK, whether you're in South Africa, doesn't matter. We are all part of this human experience, and we get to go through some of these things. So this morning, I was watching something on BBC News, and as you come in, please let me know you're here. Say hello. Just let me know who's watching, and present yourself so that I can know who is in my audience today. So I was watching BBC News this morning, and they featured a lady who was, is it 84 years or something crazy like that. And not that 84 years is crazy, but you'll understand where I'm going. Hello team, hello. You're here, you're committed to being here, and you're here. Lovely to have you. Yes, yes, yes. And hello, team. So happy to have you as always. So let me go back to my 84-year-old woman. And I was sharing this story earlier to Tim Joanne, and I was like, it's such an incredible thing that you learn when you listen. So she was invited into the BBC studio, and the reason they were featuring her is because she has done, and I know BT, this will really impress you, is that she has done 600 marathons. Can someone write for me 600 marathons? And as the interviewer was like, oh, of course, you're growing older and all that, but how have you consistently done the 600? How have you reached from one to two to three to four? And she said she started with the London Marathon because she just saw people one day queuing for a marathon, preparing to go for a marathon. And she's like, next year, I'm going to join the marathon. And she said something very, very important. She said that when she signed up for the marathon the first time, she knew she was not going to do it just the once. For her, she made up in her mind, because most people do a tick box thing. You know what I mean? I'm going to run a marathon. Once I do the marathon the first time, tick off, ciao, do, it's over. And I realized that's how we create frustrating patterns in our lives without recognizing it. Yes, I see that. Yeah, yeah, I see that. So you decide that, oh, I'm going to go for the marathon the first time. And when you go, you're like, that thing was just too much. I can't do it again. And she said it's not that the first time was easy, it was very difficult. But she's like, you know what? I've done it the first time. And then she signed up for the second one. And then she signed up for the third one. And then she signed up and she started signing up for different ones. All over the world. She said a few weeks ago she was in the South African one, which she says is one of her particularly. She loves the South African one. I don't know, I forget the name she said. And then she talked about the Tokyo Marathon. She talked about the New York Marathon, Chicago Marathon. And and as I listened to her, she said something. I started and I did not stop. That's a good thing to start and not stop. But many of us start things which are particularly damaging to us, and we do not understand why we caught up in this constant struggle with letting go of it. And I'm not one to say I'm exempt from it, and that's why I'm teaching this stuff, because everything that when it's in one person, it's in the rest of us. If it's in me, it's in you. Yeah, I started and I did not stop. If it's in me, it's in you. I'm not here coming as a little pariah or pretending that I am different from the next person. I have so many patterns that I'm working on, but it comes from a lot of stuff that I'm going to teach you today. So yeah, and as she was on the news, they actually announced to her that she's actually the woman who has run the most London marathons, and it was so beautiful. And they asked her, so what do your family members say? What do they think about what you're doing? And she's like, no, I'm just mom to them, and I'm just nan to them. Like nan is the grandma. And she's like, this is my thing. So write that in the chat. This is my thing. And that's where many of us need to start making changes, by recognizing that we have a life outside of our spouses, we have a life outside our children, we have a life outside of our clients, we have a life outside our team, we have a life that we need to create. So let's get cracking on. And I just want you to start telling me in the chat, if you can, what are some of the recurring thought patterns or recurring habits that you're like, oh, this is not a really good one, that keeps coming back. And when you see me looking down, I'm just keeping up looking at my notes. So recurring issues, like you're constantly fighting with a certain colleague, like you're just almost choking each other, always fighting. Tell me about that. You have recurring issues with your boss, right? This pattern just keeps repeating itself, right? Every time you think you say that I'm gonna break this habit, perhaps it's a smoking habit, or perhaps it's to do with comfort eating, emotional eating. I've been there, and you're like, why am I always doing this to myself? You know what I mean? So if you have a habit, a recurring habit, something that you'd want to say, right? I'm not going to address anything specific. I'm just going to give a general perspective, because I'll be talking through many different things as we go along. And I want to start by saying this, that repeating patterns, first and foremost, they're not coincidental. They do not happen by accident. They do not just jump at you, right? And I'll tell you what that happens, because when you look at life, and I don't know if Kaine is here, because Kaine said to me something in one of our conversations back in the day. She said to me that sometimes why patterns keep coming, they're merely there for you to keep doing the thing and to keep repeating it until such a time you get the lesson that you're meant to get from that particular thing. So let me see what it is that I mean. So for example, your pattern, right, is, let me use an example of, you're always you're always you're all you start the gym, you stop, you start the gym, you stop, right? Comfort eating, you say, I'm gonna clean up, I'm gonna clean up, I'm gonna clean up my plate. That's what I mean. I'm gonna clean up, I'm gonna really change. And then you do it for 2 weeks and then you stop, right? So there's this start stop cycle. And one of the things that I've come to realize as I've worked with my coaching clients is that one of the main reasons that could be happening as a result of that start stop is, number one, you have lost integrity with yourself, right? That losing integrity with yourself, where you have broken that pattern so many times that in your head you're like, you know what? It's just how I am. It's just, and you accept that, and in your head you lose all belief in yourself that you can break that pattern. And until one day, and this is why the lesson will repeat itself until you learn what it is. And for me, one of the biggest lessons I learned is that, how can I be in integrity with my clients? How can I be in integrity with the people that I serve if I cannot start with the first person who looks at themselves in the mirror every single day? Losing integrity with yourself, Shindwe, and for my international people, it means, translate, like, that ain't happened. Like Shindwe, the devil is defeated, something like that. Translate for me someone else. If I've gotten it right, I don't know how to put it properly in English. Some things when they're said in their language, that's it can be just be translated. And then also, I was in a session yesterday, and Emily, the coach, said something so powerful. She said, many of us are so addicted to our trauma, so addicted to all those things that we don't even recognize that they've already passed us because they're so ingrained in us. So, in a subconscious level, we are already damaged in some way, but we may be aware of it, but we are so addicted to clinging to it. So if we have unaddressed trauma, like childhood trauma, or we have certain conditioned belief systems that we have created over time, because we all have them, they're patterns, and these things do not serve our highest beings, do not serve our highest purposes. They do not serve our highest well-being. Basically, what will happen? The recurring frustrating patterns. Why? Because it's so ingrained in your child, in your trauma. You keep living it in everything that you do without doing it. And many of us leave this stuff unaddressed. Why? Because we do not even recognize it as trauma. I once shared a story with Betty. I don't know if she's here. And she's like, do you know that's trauma? I'm like, how is it trauma? Everybody goes through that. She's like, no, not everybody goes through that. How you have perceived it is you've just taken it as, everybody goes through that. So you have diluted its effect on you, and you're like, it's not such a big deal. But deep inside, it's an addressed issue. And I had to go back to the drawing board and ask myself, this addicted to trauma is so ingrained in us that we don't even recognize. I had to literally sit back and ask myself, how is this showing up in my life, this one thing? And literally, I kid you not, when I sat in a moment of introspection, and one of the things I'm going to share with you is how to have a thinking day. In one of my thinking days, and it's literally a day that I set to think, but I can't do a full day. My mind, I have a very overactive mind, and that's what a story just is. So here I am seated in my office, and I'm just thinking, and it just clicked in my head an incident that happened in my childhood, which to me was a normal incident, but that's where that trauma that I was rehashing over and over again without even recognizing originated from. And I had to go back to it and break it down. How did it make me feel at that time? How did I react at the time? Because I could remember it so as clear as day. And I had to sit and ask myself, now that I'm 40, whatever, and that incident happened when I was 7 or 8, all these years I've been walking with this thing in my head without even realizing that it had an impact on me one way or the other. So I want to ask you, what are some of these repeating patterns teaching us? And until I addressed that particular one, and I think about it in retrospect, so many things changed in my life. Even not only as a coach and as a teacher and as a guide, which I won't really necessarily go deep into, but I recognized that some of these things really stop us from living the life we were created to do. There's a saying that goes like, don't bleed on those who didn't hurt you. Can someone put that in the chat? Don't bleed on those who didn't hurt you. So where does this come in? Many of us carry this trauma into new relationships, and that's why we find you're in a relationship, and every single relationship is breaking for one reason or the other. And you ask yourself, how come, I meet guy one, dude A, break up with him, I meet his cousin who has the same characteristics and the same behavioral patterns, and then you break up again with dude B. Then you meet the uncle. When I say this is just figure of speech, not literal. And the only thing is that the only difference is that same person, different body, like a certain type of personality that is really messed up that you always keep attracting. And you have to look at yourself and ask yourself, Where is this rooted in? And a lot of it is many of us enter relationships, right? Whatever sort of I'm talking about, male, female, whatever sex you are, relationship, right? Without healing yourself. So now, like for example, in the case that I was sharing, you come in with all this trauma, all these wounds, and then you go and bleed on somebody who had nothing to do with it, and vice versa, right? So I want to say this: things will happen in your life, and we cannot control, external occurrences happening. And a lot of life situations I've come to understand are actually mirroring something that is already happening inside of us. Sometimes I look at somebody and something, an action that they're doing that is triggering me on their end or is affecting me from their end. I'm like, why is it triggering me? Why? It's because it's inside of me. So I want to say this: when we cannot control the external, the outer circumstance, especially when it's a situation that is coming out of the blue, something that you do not understand, this is where we learn to respond rather than react. So, can somebody write for me? Respond rather than react. When I look at my life, a lot of stuff before was very reactionary, very quick to react. Like something happens, boom, react. Let's fix it like this. Da, 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 da. And now I've learned responsiveness is what has completely changed the game for me. I don't look at things from a sense of emotion anymore. I separate myself from the thing. Remove yourself emotionally from it and ask yourself, how am I responding rather than reacting? Right? So, for example, let me use an example. I have Tim here, and Tim, I'll just use as an example. When we're in a team meeting and I realize that something has not been done, or it's not up to standard, or we need to work on it, a reaction is, why do we keep making these mistakes? Why is this happening all the time? Da, 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 right? But a response is, let's address, why is this happening the way it is? And how can we mitigate this happening in future? Maybe one of the things that we're not doing is we're not documenting it. We're not documenting the processes so that when it happens, we know exactly what to do. Or perhaps we're just taking it like it's a communication issue. You're probably thinking that I'm the one handling it, or the other person is handling it, yet it lies within the responsibility of a certain person. So that is what is called responding. You're not just throwing your mouth all over the place. You're coming from a place of, yeah, let's look at this thing and see how we can solve it, rather than pointing fingers at at each other. So yeah, really take that into account. And I just want to hear, what are some of the things in the chat that you feel personally is a frustrating pattern in your life that you'd want to break? Just put it so that I can have an idea, right? Just think about, just say it. And another, the next thing I'm talking about in these frustrating patterns, before we go to really, because I'm talking, sharing with you the thing and how to break it as we go, is the spiral effect. And the spiral effect is where situations just keep happening like that. There's a spiral, like it's a spiral. And each time you're moving up the spiral, each time you're getting into that thing, it's like, think about a tornado. You literally get completely sucked into this thing, and you think of a spiral and the way it's going, right? And what happens is, life is made up of cycles, and life is actually literally made up of spirals, because in life you're going around in circles generally. That's how life is, isn't it? And until you recognize that there's a lesson that you're meant to master, there's a lesson that you're meant to pick up, you'll continue going through in that. So write this for me if you can in the chat. I'll say it slowly. Life will keep on repeating the same situation through different circumstances until we have learned the lesson. So life will keep on repeating the same situation. Got that? Through different circumstances until we have learned the lesson. And sometimes, guess what? We think in our heads that we have mastered the lesson, but we get the exact same test, but through a different circumstance, right? And then now we are challenged, how are we going to react or respond in this new situation? So I want to give you 5 steps that you can use today. As I said, I love giving steps. How do we break these patterns? And I'm waiting for you guys to share with me some of the patterns, right? That will help you to break free from these recurring habits or patterns, so that you're more mature and you're more wise in handling them. All right. So let's do this. So the first one, number one, the first thing that I want to say is, remember, some of this childhood conditioning, we need to process it. Some of this childhood stuff that has happened, trauma that we have really become addicted to, we need to address it from the root. And I'm not going to be talking about trauma right now because I'm not a licensed therapist, but I'd want to say that, we all have that stuff. And if you're really going through something, it's important for you to really get somebody to help you process it, whether it's an inner healing coach, whether it's a therapist, but don't just sit with it. So the first step in breaking any repeating pattern is to become aware of them. And that's why I said to you guys, please share with me what is one of the patterns that you could be having in your life. Example I give: bad relationship. Another one is when you're stressed, you're comfort eating. Another one that I could give is that you're perpetually just late for meetings. You're perpetually just late for stuff. Like you say, I'm going to be there on time, I'm going to be there on time. You're never there on time. Another one is you never keep your word to yourself. You're always just, as I said, breaking your bond with yourself. So if you can, I'd really love to hear what are some of them. And of course, I know that people are like, I don't want to spread my dirty linen here, but it doesn't have to be anything complicated. It could be just something that you feel you'd want addressed, and you're like, you know what, this is actually something that I feel is a pattern that I would like to break in my life, right? Think about it, because it's so important. Become aware of it and realize that it's a repeating pattern. If you're always fighting with people, the same people, what's happening? You're always in arguments. What's that? There is something rooted to it, right? Every single time you say that you're going to wake up at 6 a.m., 5:30, it never happens. And that you start for 2-3 days and then you're like, oh, screw it, I'm not going to continue this thing. Forget it. I can't do it. I can't even trust myself to do it anymore. So be aware of it first. Look at where it is that you are consistently repeating this pattern. Yeah. When stressed, I shut everyone out. And I get that, where you're like, just leave me alone. I want to be in my own space. And that's a very familiar one. I see it all the time, even sometimes with me, that I've been able to process that. But for me, I look at it more that sometimes I just need to process it for myself first, because I don't want to load it on another person. So it could be a double one, right? Because I'm like, let me just sort it out in my head first. Because if I don't process it for myself first, how would I even then get the help to be supported? So I first have to process it. So yeah, I get it. It could be whichever way, but I get it. When stressed, you shut everyone out. Is that familiar for anybody else? Because I get it, and I've learned that for me it's okay, because I'm just like, let me process it first before I share it with the world. The second step is observing the situation. Just as I said earlier, observe the situation and not reacting, without reacting. Why this is important, right, is many of us, again, I said, we just jump and react. There we are. The other day, I was in traffic. I was coming from the city. I'm going to run some errands. Then this guy just so carelessly is driving just like some maniac, literally just crosses to the other side of the lane. Those people who just don't stick to their lane. And the one whose lane he was crossing was they hooted at him, but because his mind was so busy abusing the one who was gone, he almost knocked somebody on on a, what do you call that, the light, traffic light. He was so busy screaming at this other person, he forgot that there was a traffic light that was coming, as he concentrated his energy on reacting to the person who had cut him off. And I'm like, oh my God, that's now, because now I'm very aware of these things. I'm like, that's a reaction. The guy who passed him, his past is gone. You move on, you continue with your journey, right? You can hoot at him to bring it to his attention, but don't lose your attention. Don't lose your focus with that stupid, silly man on that side, that you end up almost killing somebody on a pedestrian crossing, because you're so busy concentrating on reacting. So that was such a succinct example for me, because as I walk and as I go about my day, whether I'm driving, whether I'm in the gym, whether I'm with my team, my mind is continuously processing these things, right? And just those of you who know, we've been having our 100-day challenge, not with my sprinters, with my team. And next week we'll be coming in to share our experience of our own 100-day at the halfway mark. So next week we'll be doing 50 lessons that we have learned during our 100-day challenge. That will be a really, really good one. So come and join me and Jennifer as we share our experience of doing the challenge, right? Observe the situation without reacting, yeah? Observing the situation without reacting, very important. And then let's see this one. Okay. But I don't share or ask for help. I just double down and fix it and it help could be there easily if I just ask. Yeah, that's one of the biggest problems we have as women. We never ask for help. And one thing I always say, my clients hear this from me all the time: a closed mouth don't get fed. And especially having learned women of African origin, Black people generally, that's how we are socialized. Like, fix it. You're a fixer. You can do it. Why are you looking for people to sort out your issues when you can sort them? And that was me for a very long time. But the more I became, got deeper into my work as a coach, the more I realized you cannot be an island. No one is an island. And for a very long time, I operated alone, even in my business. And I'm like, I can't do this on my own. And now I have team to support me. Why? It has completely changed my life, because two brains, two minds, two creative thought, we are three, can do so much better than me on my own. And I've found so many instances, and I know these are different situations, of course, when you're talking about personal situations and all that, but there's always someone willing to help. Through some of my darkest moments, just sharing with one person has completely, changed the situation for me, because they say a burden shared is a burden halved. Yeah. A burden shared is a burden halved. And you also have to be very, very, very careful who you share stuff with. So I get it. So if you don't shut everyone out, you're in the 100-day sprint, you will make amazing friends in there. And you know that help is just a shout away. So you're in the right environment. So you're covered. You're good be. So the third step is identifying what lesson this is trying to teach us. I've sat down and asked myself this. I never used to ask myself this. You know that it says that all things are happening for your good, right? All things are happening for your good. So I used to be like, but how? What is the lesson that this is meant to teach me? And that has completely reframed how I operate. Anything and everything that is happening in my life these days, I'm like, what's the lesson I'm meant to learn there? Is it a communication lesson? Maybe I'm not communicating properly. Is it a negligence lesson that I have neglected myself? Is it a personality lesson that there are parts of my personality that I need to work on? Right? Is it a relational lesson? How can I relate better with people? Is it a health lesson that, oh, you need to pay attention to that particular thing? Don't just snuff it away. Don't just throw it out there. Ask yourself, and this is so important. Lesson number 3: identify what lesson this thing is trying to teach me. And that will move the needle for you. What is this lesson trying to teach me? That guy, the one in the traffic light, oh, I learned When you're driving, stick to your driving. Whatever Mr. Peter is doing on that lane, that's his business. Whatever Mrs. Smith is doing on this other lane, that's her business. Joanne, slay in your lane, stick to your lane. That was a very big lesson for me. Yeah. So thank you so much. Identify what lesson this is trying to teach us. Right. You got that. The fourth step is accepting the situation, integrating and healing and letting it go. The thing I started with about us being addicted to our trauma and not being able to release it. And as you saw at the top, where was it? B said something really good. And she said it's addicted to trauma ingrained in us that we keep rehashing and reliving. So this is the fourth step, that we're not rehashing and reliving. We are accepting the situation, we are integrating and healing, and we are letting it go. And when I talk about integrating, we're going to go a little bit into that. Integrating is, what is it from this thing that I need to bring into my life so that I can be able to move past it, right? Back to number 3, right? What was number 3? What lesson is this trying to teach me? So in my particular situation I spoke to with Betty, it was so interesting when I realized that, oh, there are actually lessons from this trauma that I went through that have actually led me to being the person that I am right now. That the woman I am right now, that's the integration, that there are lessons, there are snippets, there are things that I picked from that. And I'm like, you know what? Had I not gone through that, I wouldn't be the woman that I am today. I wouldn't be the person that I am today. So sometimes we need to integrate something into our lives, something that we have lacked or potentially lacked within us, right? And sometimes it is purely about letting it go. So sometimes it's integrating it, what I've just said, or letting it go, releasing it. And then after that, you move on. You continue with your life in order to break the pattern. So the integration is what is within me that is lacking that I could pick from this lesson and take with me on my life journey. For me, that particular lesson was an integration one. But in other ones, it's about letting go. Maybe that trauma was so bad, and once you process it, you understand that, you know what? I'm not gonna hold this person for the rest of my life. I'm not going to have this person prevent me from living in the fullness of my purpose. And I am not minimizing some of the things you have gone through. I'm not minimizing some of the experiences I have gone through. Some things are extremely, extremely difficult and very painful to process. But I want to beseech you, for the sake of yourself, for the sake of your children, for the sake of generations to come, please let it go. Because these frustrating patterns are passed on generationally. Have you ever noticed some things that happen in your family line and you're like, it happened with your grandmother, then it happened with your great grandmother, then it happened with your grandmother, then it happened with your mother, and then it happened with you? I've seen that. So the other day, a lady was talking about on a podcast how her great grandmother had the grandmother at 15, and then the grandmother had her mother at 16, and then her mother had her at 16, and then she had her daughter at 15. And she's like, there's something here. How could this be happening? By the time they are 30 or 30, 35, 40, their grandmothers even, you know what I mean? And she's like, gosh, there's something here. And they had to, she really had to go back and, in the podcast, she was just explaining how sometimes we just take these things like it's just a thing, right? No shade for any uh, family situation. I'm just saying, giving examples, right? Where everything, every when you go back to your roots, your all marriages break at a certain point. Like you look at your aunties, you look at your uncles, you look at your cousins, they are all, after 3 years of marriage, they get divorced. Others separated. Look at another one, cycles of violence. Think about it. What is happening there? We really need to take this thing serious. It's not just a simple thing as, oh, okay, it's just how it is in our family. These things need to be uprooted so that you don't pass it on to your children. Identify what is that root that could be happening in your family line that is preventing you guys. Have you seen families where poverty is just the story of the game, story um, of the day? Poverty. They've never known anything beyond poverty. Every generation is just poor, struggling. And then look at others generationally: wealth, abundance, opulence, success. Their kids are doing well, their kids are succeeding, their kids, because it's both ways. Where you see a family line is almost, there's nothing pure, but it's pure. You know what I mean? Like the things are just flowing well. Even the relationships amongst each other are so good. They're in their businesses, they're supporting each other, and you're just seeing that heritage, that dynasty, that some very, very, very good familial structures being created and going down across the ages. It can go both ways. So I'd want to give you homework today, because as a coach, even as I teach, I'd want you to take time. Go and look at some of these patterns in your family. Don't just listen to me like a radio. Don't just listen to me and you're like, oh yeah, yeah, in my family, yeah, all my uncles are alcoholics. Oh, oh, no. No. Question it. Question it. Why is this the case? Because the moment you can question something, everything changes. And yes, there's so many angles I could bring, including the spiritual, because that's one of the dimensions that I strongly believe in, that there are things like curses. They exist, they're there. There are things in the bloodline where something could be totally messed up in that bloodline that needs to be redeemed. But that's not my place to talk about on this video. But ask yourself, and then start asking better questions and seeing how that can be resolved. How can we heal our family bloodline? How can we prevent the sludge and the nastiness from our generation to go to the next generation? It comes from having these conversations and really listening, right? And yes, accepting the situation, but questioning it as well. Why is this happening? Integrating what needs to be integrated, and then releasing and letting go. I really wanted to point that out, because sometimes we just accept stuff that we should not accept. There's a point where you have to reach in your life, and you say, this is totally unacceptable. This is not going to happen in my family. And you put a foot down, you put a stake in the ground, and you're like, this ends with me. This is not going down to my children. This is not going to my nieces. This is not going to my nephews. This has to end with me. And you make a stand, and then you create a plan to make it happen. I agree. I will look into our family line. That's your homework. Exactly. Not easy for real. And think to yourself, BT, as well. Where is, because these things are hard, eh? Looking at it in the mirror, and especially with our loved ones, you don't want to really question your parents or your mom or who, but it's just looking at it from a very objective, that's the word I'm thinking, very objective stance. Why is this happening? Don't accept it, because that's what the devil wants you to do, to say that this is how things are done. No, things can change. Things can change, and they can change very quickly. Release and let go. The back stops with you. Number 5. And listen, even as I'm talking, I'm also thinking of my own situations. Where do we need to change as well, even in my own lineage, right? I've done this work, and it's very hard work, but things surface and they come, and you're like, you know what, we need to address them. Yes, my generation will not always wait for the elderly before we can travel. Exactly. We can do it to ourselves too. You don't have to wait to be given permission. That's what she means by cutting these things. You have to take a stand. Thank you, Jennifer. I really like that. You don't have to wait for the ones ahead of you to break those chains. You can do it too by the grace of God. Thank you, team. I love that. And then number 5 is life. The fifth step is life testing you again with a repeating pattern to see if you learned the lesson and have fully let go. So after you've done these steps and it comes back again, have you fully let go or are you still holding on to it? Because I said life will continue bringing in that challenge until you learn the lesson that you need to learn from it. You'll still keep getting on those shitty, nasty men until you ask yourself, why am I attracting this type of person? Vice versa, you'll attract those Jezebelic spirit women until you ask yourself, what am I doing? What within me is attracting these people? Why am I allowing this to happen in my life every time? Right? And I want to say this, if there's any situation in your life that you currently find yourself in and you notice that this is a repeating pattern, come back to this video and watch it, right? And you're not happy, because the thing is, for it to be a frustrating pattern, it means you're not happy with it. It means it's causing you some grief. It means it's constantly nagging you at the back of your mind, right? So use the steps that I've given you because they're going to be very helpful. But I also want to reiterate something. Be gentle with yourself, especially when you start to notice these repeating patterns happening again and again. Because you see, you can think you've broken it and then it shows up again, and then you're like, it's okay, it is what it is. No, be gentle with yourself. My generation, as you said, will not wait, but you have to also be gentle with yourself, right? And that's a very big step. Being aware of a certain pattern allows us to observe the matter outside. I always say, step out of yourself. Don't put yourself as Joanne. Sometimes I literally feel like I've plucked my head out and now I'm somebody else and I'm looking at the situation outside of myself, right? Find out the lesson that you're meant to learn, and then ask yourself, what is the lesson that life is trying to teach me? What is the lesson that God wants me to learn from this? And then take the healing approaches that I've given you, whether it's going into therapy, whether it's getting a spiritual mentor, a special guide to help you really go deep into those things. Because as I said, I don't do those. I don't know. It's not an area that I'm vast with, but really, it's not an area I do myself. I get help for that. So if you need, help, get somebody to support you in that area, and then learn the lesson for good, so that you can break the pattern, and so that you can move ahead, and again really get to experience your life happily. For me, I think to myself, if everybody just took one look at themselves and one lesson from what I'm talking about today, and really just look at it from a practical perspective, right? A lot of the things are going to change. A lot of familiar spirits are going to be broken. Say to yourself that these negative patterns are going to be broken. Ask yourself, why am I always procrastinating on my goals? That's a negative pattern. Why do I start things and I don't finish them? Why am I constantly encountering financial problems? Why am I always in debt? Always in debt. You beg from Peter to pay Paul. Ask yourself, why is that situation always like that? Why are you always having constant problems in your workplace? Fighting with your boss, fighting with your colleagues. Why are you always having, of course, in a partnership or a marriage, problems you'll have, but why are you constantly squabbling? Why are you always at each other's throats? Why are you always almost eating your children alive? Every day. Why are these things coming? Why is there constant failure when it comes to your goals? Why? Why are these negative patterns showing up? Why do you have addictions in your life? Addictions. Some people have, here I see in this country, people addicted to gambling, people addicted to, drinking. Many people are addicted to pornography, could be stress eating, drugs. Those are addictions. Addictions are not just, oh, pornography, what. It could even just be something like you're just addicted to eating. Like you can't stop eating all day. And you think, I just like snacking. I'm a foodie. No, you're not. You're a foodie who is addicted as well. Right? So it's any pattern. So think about it, and then using the steps that I've outlined for you, create a life plan and do the homework that I've given you, please. Don't just listen to these things and just let it be like, oh, you know what, I'm cool, it's okay, things will happen, they'll break themselves. But I want to say this: nothing breaks itself. No stronghold, no chokehold, nothing choking you. If someone comes to choke you like this, you think you're going to sit there and wait for them to choke you. You'll use all the force you need to get yourself released from the grip of that thing, right? So I want to encourage you that understand that these patterns occur as a result of the internal fundamental frameworks that we live by. And for us to understand that it's only us, it's only you, it's only me who can break those same things. Because these frameworks, obviously, as I said, come again from the inner beliefs that we hold, and of course, the values that we walk with. And the main thing that we need to do, as I summarize this topic, is to look inward, just as I said, to also look at what the triggers are, and then go to the root. Here, we're not treating symptoms. It's not something where you have a little headache and you take Panadol and you're like, oh, I feel much better. No. What is causing that migraine? Go to the root of it. What is causing that familiar spirit to come to your family all the time? And then look for a resolution at the root level. Okay, so who's ready for more homework? As I finish, just say yes. If I see some yeses, I'll do the homework. If not, I'm just going to finish this live stream here. So if anyone wants a bit of homework, let me know, and I can give you an exercise that you can do really quickly in your own time. Yeah. Oh dear, foodie. Yeah, when you hear me laughing like that, yeah, I'm a foodie. Yeah, just like to eat. That's it. Yeah, there's a foodie, but there's also the one. Yes, you need to change the fundamental framework of your patterns. And that's by really analyzing them and understanding where they're coming from, the way I've said, right? And understanding that these inner frameworks are repetitive behaviors that we need to look at and analyze them. And the good thing is that since patterns are come as a result of our beliefs, guess what? We can change them by changing our beliefs. It's as simple as that. That if you change your belief, yes, okay, good. Yes, Carol. See you in a short time, a short while in the 100-day sprint. Yes, BT, I see you. Okay, I need a couple more yeses before I give this homework. Tim, you're also allowed to say yes. Yeah, but once you start changing your belief towards something, this might be a very weird example, but it's something I've seen here. The people who believe that they're disadvantaged because of the color of their skin, guess what? Everything that happens in their life here, I see it, makes them disadvantaged because they've already come to that conclusion. But if there are people who in this country, in the US and other countries where there are, all sorts, you come to the conclusion that I've been given an opportunity. I'm in this country to survive and I can thrive. And I'm in this country to make the most of the time that God has given me to be here. Guess what? Those people tremendously succeed in whatever it is that they do. When I came to this country, I was very, very clear from the offset. I was not going to enter into the psychological thinking of many of the people who in my life, have been living here are telling me, oh, this is what's going to happen, oh, racism, oh, what. I refused. I made a pact with myself that I was not going to get into that narrative. And I decided I'm going to look at myself as an equal, if not even better. And I went full in with my purpose. I didn't turn to the left. I did not look at Mary on the left. I did not look at Jane on the right. I was so laser focused on my goals. I was so laser focused on this calling that God had put in my life. And I can tell you, when I look back, one of the people came back, they're like, wow, you've done what? You've done what? You've done what? I'm like, it's not what I've done. I made up my mind. So I want to see that in the chat. My mind is made up. I've got my mind made up that I won't turn back. Is that the song? Something like that. I made up my mind. And a lady from my high school sent me a WhatsApp message. She lives in forgotten the name of some country in Europe. And she said to me that when she left Kenya, you have your heritage. My heritage is here. It ain't going nowhere. No one can separate the Kenyan in me from anything in my life. That's part of my heritage. It's who I am, right? But when you go to Rome, guess what? You do what the Romans do. You integrate. That's where integration comes in, the one that I taught you here. You come here or you go to a different country, you integrate. You're with the people of that country, you honor their traditions, they honor their beliefs, so long as they're not in contradiction with the things that you truly believe in. So, for example, for me, there's no way I would compromise my faith, because my faith is everything. I have so many friends who don't have a faith at all. They're like, I don't believe in anything. And that's cool. I respect that. But for me, I know what my faith is to me. I ain't playing with that. I ain't playing with God. I'm not joking. This is the life that he gave me. He gave me a second chance. Why would I leave him because of other people's perceptions and thoughts? Never, ever. So you move and you integrate, but at the same time, you decide there are things I will never to my dying day be compromised on, right? So let me give you the exercise. So write down a list of negative patterns in your life. So many, different ones that are coming in. Yes, you need that belief change. It's so important, because since patterns are a result of our beliefs, it's just a recipe. It's just a you know what I mean, right? We can then simply get out of them by changing our beliefs. It's as simple as that. BT. And then BT also says, I also resist the mindset that I will not be favored or chosen because of the color of my skin here at my workplace. She works in an international environment. I will be listened to and given room to exercise my gifts and talents. That's it. They will listen to me. And I will demand that my gifts and talents are showcased. So you place a demand note on it, BT. Now we are taking it another level. Say, I place a demand note on it. Those are the things you do. I place a demand note that this business is successful. It's not something that we are pleading about. It's a given. I do my bit. I talk to my God, and I face, with boldness and courage. And I do my bit weekly with YouTube, my sprinters, working with my clients, do my thing, be humble, do what you're doing, work with the team. Your things will work. It will work. Just have that confidence. So write down a list of negative patterns in your life. Then number one, choose the one you want to get rid of, because I want you to choose one to start with. So list down the past 5 to 10 times you have been in such a situation. So you need to ask yourself, where have I been in this situation over and over again? Why am I in this situation where I'm always late for appointments? So ask yourself, the last time I was meeting Joanne for my coaching session, I was late 10 minutes. The last time that I was going to pick up my child from school, I arrived 15 minutes past the time. Write down, because that shows you one of the dominant trends that you need to work on, right? Then the second thing is list down the factors, right, for each situation that led to the outcome. Are we together? Yes, let me first put this. Amen. Amen. I'm in full agreement. This is an area we've been talking about very much. I demand that my gifts and talents as a literacy coach thrive in this space. But it comes from us breaking these other familiar patterns, BT, us recognizing them and saying to ourselves, I'm breaking free so that I can advance in this calling that I've been given. So, number two is list down the factors for each situation that led to the outcome. So, it could be, where was I late? You are late because you slept late, you overslept, right? Another one could be, you are talking to your friend on the phone, you completely forgot you had an appointment, right? Another one could be, tell me, you are caught up in traffic, or so, because in your head you're like, oh, it's going to take me 10 minutes to get there, then you leave 10 minutes before the time, and then there's a diversion or whatever. So really, or you found the bus, you are taking a bus and then the bus was late, or maybe you are going to a foreign place, and you didn't have the GPS, you didn't have the address, the proper address, so you couldn't find the location. So it's important for you to list down the factors that led to the outcome. Very important. And then number three, are you taking notes, my friends? Number three is identify the commonalities across the factors. So look at all the factors that you have listed. Are there any commonalities, any common factors across this thing? Like you being late, what is it? Right? And you'll find that in each case that you analyze, there's something that is popping up. So it could be, and you'd find that, okay, I'm going ahead of myself. So you could find that truly you just don't honor people's time, and you don't honor your time. It's as simple as that. That's a root. You don't see time like it's anything serious. Because there are people who don't, for me, I don't play with time, because I've had a traumatic experience that helped me realize the value of time. But for some other people, they're like, tell African time. Oh, African time. And that really angers me when someone tells me such a thing. What do you mean, African time? My time is valuable, so is your time. If we agreed 10 a.m., please be there 10 a.m. It just makes a difference, right? So identify the commonality so that you can understand where you always caught up in this mess. Then number four, drill down into the cause of the factors, right? So drill down, right? Drill down. What's the reason? Why do I not finish what I start? Why why do I say I'm going to do something earlier, and when the time comes, it's not been completed? So you can find something that you had put on your plate more than what was unrealistically achievable. That's why you're late. Because you're there dropping kids, then after that you said you're going to go to the hairdresser, then after the hairdresser, and you just put too many things in your day. So it completely screws up your day. And then also sometimes it could be, instead of following your schedule, you get distracted. That's why you're late. You're distracted, you have no structure, you just do things willy-nilly. You can't do things willy-nilly in this day and age. So you're doing non-peripheral tasks that are useless in the bigger thing. Be aware of that. And then also realize where you overestimate your capacity. I do that a lot. I stretch myself, but these days I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm not gonna overestimate my capacity. BT, your black cat and the owner, I think they're going for a walk. And then also realizing that you're setting up all these appointments to be a people pleaser. You can't say no. You know that your coaching session is meant to be at 11, and at 10:30 you have to do something. Why don't you contact the coach and say, listen, can we move our session by 1 hour going forward, because I have to do this. Don't be a people pleaser at the expense of you creating frustrating patterns in your life, right? Be okay to change things. That's why changing your mind is something that you are given by God. You can change your mind anytime. You can change it. And then number five, as we wind up, is to identify action steps to address the cause, right? And I've already started giving you the action steps. So what are the action steps that will address the root causes I shared with you, right? So some of the things could be like, you create a list of tasks which will match your current capacity, so that you're not always running late and embarrassing yourself. And even for me, how much capacity do I have? I can then delegate to my team happily. Tim, thank you so much. I'm going to give you the list again so that you can put it real quickly. And then I also place my schedule in. I now use my Google Calendar for almost everything. I find it so much easier. I have written so many planners, but I always keep forgetting to update them. But my Google Calendar is up to date on everything. And what I've done is I've color coded it so that I know the personal things, my official things, including my thinking time. It's all scheduled in my gym, color coded, so that nothing enters the other one, no distractions, right? And then in places where I'm not able to solve the situation, it's okay, it's fine, right? Accept that is the case, right? And then create a plan to address it or redress it so that it doesn't happen in future. So the first one, yes, is list down the past list down the factors for each situation. You got right that. Number 3 is identify the commonalities across the factors. Yeah, so the first one is list down the past 5 to 10 times. Yeah. Then number 2 is list down the factors for each situation that led to the outcome. Yes. Then number 3 is identify the commonalities across the factors. Then number 4 is drill down into the cause of the factors, just like the way I mentioned, right? Why is this the case? Why is that so? Why is this happening? Until you get to that point of resonation where you're like, you know what? I'm getting this stuff. I had planned more than was realistically possible. I'm stretching myself beyond my capacity, really drilling down the cause of the factors, right? And then number 5 is identify the action steps to address the cause. And I want to really congratulate you, Wabs, for what you've said. My mind is made up. I am in Germany and I will make it. I don't care what people say about, I think you meant about me. That's it. Because God has planted you in Germany for a unique purpose. If Joseph went to that place with all the tribulations and tests that he had, he was a dreamer, but he ended up with all the challenges, going to prison, that woman accusing him of, I don't know, all that guy went through stuff, Joseph. And he rose up to become the second highest in command after Pharaoh. He rose up to become what? The prime minister. My friend, a little boy, he was barely 17 when he went into captivity. So let me tell you this, there's no reason why we cannot succeed wherever we have been planted. And I want us to put in the chat, I will bloom where I am planted. Write that. I will bloom where I am planted. I want to see that words. I will bloom where I am planted. Yes, drill down into the cause of the factors and then identify action steps to address the issues. I want to see that, then we're out of here. I want to say this, ladies and gents, because we always have a few good men watching. It's not that difficult. When we get to the root of the issue and we use the strategic steps that I've outlined for you here, I can tell you there's no frustrating pattern in life that we cannot break. There's nothing that we cannot say that we're going to change. So, I have to jump out of here. I have a call in a few minutes, but I want to acknowledge each one of you who has stayed with me, those who are gonna watch the replay. And I want to say, don't just come and watch these things and just be like, oh, she's just taught something else here. Take it and make it part of your lifestyle. If you inculcate these things into your life, if you take these things and ask God, what do I need to learn from these things? What is it that I meant? Why was I the one on that video? This video was shared. It's all over the world. The ones who are here live, you got it live. What are you meant to learn from it? Ask yourself. How come all those other people never saw it? You're the one who saw it. It means there's something for you to pick up from it, isn't it? Yeah? That's how I would take it. There's something here. Why am I the one watching this video? And always remember that the thing that we're picking there at Jane there, Mary there, Peter there, it's in us. If you see it in somebody else, it is in you. If you see it in your neighbor, it is also in you, because we are a mirror of those other people. We are a mirror of the things that we are seeing and experiencing, right? So I leave you all. Yeah, and see you next Thursday. And for my sprinters, I will be seeing you 1 hour 20 minutes from now. You better be on time, because I'm going to be teaching you something that will really, really, really blow your minds. All right, you're welcome, BT. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for your thanks and for being here. And share the video with your friends, because you have those friends who are always in patterns and you're like, God, how can I help them? You're even tired of picking the phone call. You're like, oh, what is she going to tell me today? I've done the work for you. Send for them the video. Those patterns will be broken so that they don't have to disturb you, so that you can concentrate on breaking your own patterns. You're not breaking other people. Start with yourself. Charity begins at home. Mwah! See you guys next week. We will go to our normal time, which is usually 5:30, 5 p.m. Yeah, 5 p.m. UK, 7 p.m. I think so. Whatever. You will know. You'll see me go live. Just put no. Oh, you're welcome, BT. You're most welcome. Please put a notification. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Then put that press that button. Press the button. Yeah, 5 p.m. Thank you. Thank you so much. That's why you have a team to think for me. Press the button to say, when she goes live, notify me. Notification button. That's what it's called. Notification bell. Notification bell. You will share. Mwah! Thank you. Save yourself so that you're not the one busy putting out people's fires. Let me do the work for you. All right, everybody. See you soon. Take care and have a wonderful remainder of the day. And my sprinters, see you in 1 hour, 15 minutes. Bye.